This motorcycle embarrassed Harley-Davidson. It's cheaper, smoother, better built, and they made sure you'll never see it on American roads. But why? Watch this through, because by the end you won't just want one, you'll wonder who's really calling the shots in this industry. It looks like a Harley, but it's built in China. At first glance, it's unmistakable. That low-slung silhouette, the belt-driven rear wheel, the teardrop tank finished in matte black or candy red, a V-twin engine framed by sculpted pipes that scream Americana. But look a little closer and something isn't quite right. The nameplate on the tank doesn't say Harley-Davidson. It says Keyway, a brand most Americans have never even heard of. And the price? Not $20,000. Not even $10,000. This bike, the Keyway FI 302C, sells overseas for as little as $1,500. It's a machine that looks and feels like it belongs in Milwaukee, yet it's assembled in China, designed in Italy, and shockingly, banned from sale in the United States. Riders in Spain, Germany, Thailand, and Turkey are snapping it up like candy. Meanwhile, American bikers are being steered toward 15-year-old used Sportsters at triple the price, wondering why nothing new ever seems affordable anymore. That's the deception. The V302C was never meant to compete with Harley-Davidson in public. It was meant to outclass it in silence. No splashy ad campaigns, no Super Bowl halftime shows, just steel, function, and rider-focused engineering. All of it quietly manufactured under a global partnership that has more in common with modern Formula One teams than it does with traditional motorcycle brands. And yet, most Americans still don't know this bike exists. The reason? Because it's not about visibility, it's about access. The V302C has been systematically blocked from U.S. entry through a wall of tariffs, certification barriers, and regulatory sabotage. Not because it's unsafe, but because it's too good. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, because while the V302C looks like a Harley from a distance, that's not where the real story lies. But the way it rides, that's where things really got uncomfortable. If you've ever felt priced out of motorcycling, hit like and drop a comment. Riders deserve better than sticker shock and silence. How China beat Harley at their own game. To understand this bike, you have to understand the triangle of influence behind it. Keyway, an entry-level motorcycle brand originally founded in Hungary. Benelli, a legendary Italian manufacturer absorbed into Chinese ownership in the early 2000s, and QJ Motor, a state-backed industrial powerhouse that now builds high-end engines, racing bikes, and even military tech. Together, they formed a design, manufacturing, distribution network that Harley-Davidson could never match in efficiency. While Harley was bleeding market share and struggling to define its identity, Keyway and its partners were busy working the numbers. They streamlined tooling, sourced common engine platforms, merged design studios with robotic assembly lines, and then they did something Harley hasn't done in decades. They built a cruiser designed to be affordable without feeling cheap. The result was the V302C, a 298 cubic centimeter, liquid-cooled V-twin engine mounted in a modern steel frame. The bike weighs less than 400 pounds, features upside-down forks, a digital dash, a belt drive, and an LED headlamp, all standard. And because the companies behind it share parts with dozens of other models across markets, production costs are stunningly low. This wasn't about disruption, it was about precision. While Harley chased lifestyle branding, Keyway delivered practical engineering. And in a world where younger riders care more about price, tech, and real-world usability than badge prestige, that approach was destined to land hard. But engineering specs only go so far. Any motorcycle can look good on paper, but even the smartest strategy means nothing if the ride feels like junk. Everything we recommend, gear and tools that actually work, is linked in the description below. No fluff, just what works. Ride feel that embarrasses Milwaukee. If you've ever ridden a Harley Street 500, you know what disappointment feels like. Harsh suspension, rubber-mounted handlebars that buzz at every stoplight, a vague clutch pull, Hollow throttle response. For a bike meant to welcome new riders, the street lineup was infamously unfriendly. The Keyway FI 302C, on the other hand, delivers something Harley hasn't touched in years: balance. At low speeds, the V302C is shockingly nimble. The clutch is light, progressive, and forgiving. The throttle is responsive without being twitchy. The bike doesn't lurch forward or bog down, it glides. The seat height, just under 28 inches, gives riders of all sizes a stable base. And the 2-into-2 exhaust system produces a deep, bassy rumble that sounds richer than most Harleys twice its displacement. Independent reviewers in Europe and Asia have described it as a spiritual successor to the first-gen Shadow, and better sorted than the Street 750 ever was. Others went even further, calling it the first Chinese motorcycle that feels more Japanese than American. What's even more surprising is how few corners were cut. No plastic fuel tanks, no clunky gearboxes. The welds are clean. The paint doesn't peel after one season. The belts don't squeak. Riders report consistent performance even after 10,000 kilometers of commuting and weekend rides. In short, the V302C doesn't just look the part, it plays the part. And when this news started to spread across rider forums, something started shifting behind the scenes. And the moment riders spoke up, dealers started listening. The moment Harley realized it had a problem. Dealerships in Spain and Portugal were the first to notice. Customers were walking past the used Harley row and signing up for test rides on the V302C. Then came the sellouts. Then came the waiting lists. By the time the bike launched in Italy, demand had already outstripped supply. Keyway couldn't ship them fast enough. Meanwhile, in the United States, Harley dealerships were still trying to push the Iron 883 to 20-year-olds working gig jobs. Finance teams pushed loans. Sales teams leaned on nostalgia. But nothing stuck. The younger generation wasn't buying the dream anymore, because overseas they'd already found reality. And it looked a lot like a V302C. European dealers started dropping Harley completely. Some moved to multi-brand showrooms featuring Benelli, Keyway, and even Benda models. Others held on but quietly shifted floor space toward bikes that actually sold. Harley's reaction: more press releases, more electric prototypes, more promises that rang hollow. It wasn't that the V302C was stealing Harley's heritage, it was that Harley had already abandoned it, and this upstart filled the void. For the first time in decades, the aura of the American cruiser wasn't being defended. It was being challenged, and it wasn't coming from Japan or Europe, it was coming from Guangzhou. So if the bike's this good, why can't you ride one in America? This isn't about safety, it's about control. The Keyway FI 302C is street legal across Europe, certified in Southeast Asia, and has passed emissions and safety regulations in more than a dozen countries. It meets the same braking standards, lighting requirements, and emissions thresholds demanded in developed markets. So why can't you buy it in the United States? The answer has nothing to do with safety and everything to do with control. In America, any imported motorcycle must clear an avalanche of paperwork. The Environmental Protection Agency demands specific emissions testing under U.S. protocols, no matter what certifications the bike already holds abroad. The Department of Transportation requires conformance to a long list of rules about reflectors, mirrors, speedometers, and frame labeling. Then there's the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, which governs crash data, parts traceability, and recall reporting. For big brands like Honda or Yamaha, these bureaucratic hurdles are annoying but manageable. For smaller companies like Keyway, they're nearly impossible. Each compliance test costs tens of thousands of dollars, must be submitted in English, and must be renewed constantly. One paperwork mistake? Denial. One missing report? Border seizure. And that's just the federal layer. States can impose additional hurdles. Some won't allow registration without a VIN certified through the U.S. recall database. Others block insurance underwriting for brands not listed on dealer networks. It's not a ban, it's a slow, quiet suffocation, one rule at a time. And when you look at who built those barriers, it gets personal. Regulatory sabotage, Harley style. Harley-Davidson didn't just ride American roads, it helped pave them. Not just with chrome and torque, but with lobbyists and paperwork. Back in the early 1980s, Harley was facing collapse. Japanese manufacturers were flooding the US with reliable, affordable bikes, and Harley's lineup couldn't keep up. So the company lobbied the Reagan administration for help. What followed was the Motorcycle Tariff Act of 1983, a protectionist measure that slapped steep duties on large displacement imported bikes. It worked, temporarily, but Harley learned a deeper lesson. Legislation can be a weapon, and they kept sharpening it. Over the next 4 decades, Harley quietly embedded itself into policy networks, industry safety boards, EPA advisory groups, and trade associations. They didn't just meet regulations, they helped write them. From blinkers to brake lines, Harley aligned U.S. requirements around designs that mirrored its own production standards, ensuring that foreign rivals would have to jump through uniquely American hoops. And when competitors did try to enter the market, Harley leaned on its dealer network to oppose them at the local level. Petitions, delay tactics, and legal challenges became standard practice. Even now, Harley supports lobbying groups that oppose relaxing import rules for low-cost foreign motorcycles, especially from China. This isn't conspiracy theory, it's policy. And while the V302C may be the latest victim, it's far from the first. But one American refused to play by the rules and paid the price. The American who tried to import one anyway. His name was Marcus Dean. He was a retired aviation mechanic from Arizona who had ridden everything from a Yamaha XS 650 to a Softail Slim. When he saw a video review of the Keyway V302C coming out of Spain, he was stunned. It looked like the bike Harley should have built 20 years ago. Affordable, balanced, no fluff. So he did something bold. Marcus contacted a distributor in Europe and paid just under $2,000 for a crated V302C. Shipping and customs added another $600. It arrived in Los Angeles in a metal cage, clean, polished, and perfectly intact. And then the nightmare began. Customs held the bike for 32 days. The EPA sticker was present, but not American certified. The DOTVIN tag, non-compliant. Insurance companies wouldn't write a policy. The DMV said the bike couldn't be titled without a NHTSA waiver. Marcus filed appeals, paid fees, waited months. Eventually, he was forced to register the bike as an off-road custom build to ride it on his own land. A motorcycle that met safety standards in Europe couldn't legally cruise down Main Street in Phoenix. What broke him wasn't the money. It was the silence. No one at Harley or the NHTSA would even acknowledge his letters. He wasn't a threat. He was just an inconvenience. A reminder that the system wasn't designed to protect him. It was designed to protect someone else. Meanwhile, across the ocean, that same bike was rewriting the rules. Why Europe embraced the bike Harley fears. In Europe, the Keyway FI 302C didn't have to sneak in through back channels. It was welcomed, certified through pan-European regulations, and sold through hundreds of dealerships. In Germany, it became a hit among commuters who wanted cruiser style without the weight. In France, it appealed to first-time riders who couldn't justify a $20,000 investment for weekend rides. In Poland and Hungary, it became a cultural marker, a rebellion against overpriced imports. What made the V302C work in Europe wasn't just the price, it was the fact that the bike fit real life. It didn't ask riders to join a lifestyle club, it didn't demand a leather vest or a tribal tattoo. It just worked. It got good mileage. It was comfortable, it was fast enough. It passed inspection. Even former Harley owners in the UK began switching over. One rider's review went viral. Harley gave up on the working man. Keyway didn't. Meanwhile, in the United States, the same bike sat in warehouses, crated, idle, and unsellable. Europe didn't view the V302C as a threat to heritage. They saw it as an evolution, a correction, proof that cruiser culture wasn't dead. It had just been priced out of reach by the very companies claiming to preserve it. But Europe wasn't the end of this story. It was just the beginning. Keyway was just the beginning. The Keyway FI 302C was just the opening shot in a war Harley didn't see coming. What followed was an organized invasion of the global cruiser market, quiet, methodical, and devastatingly effective. Across Asia, Eastern Europe, and Latin America, Chinese manufacturers began flooding the roads with motorcycles that looked like they came straight from Milwaukee. The Lifan 516S offered classic cruiser lines, a V-twin aesthetic, and respectable performance for under $2,500. Benda's BD 300 arrived with sculpted exhausts, upside-down forks, and aggressive styling. Then came the Zontes 5 310, equipped with futuristic tech, TFT display, keyless start, electronic windshield, and full LED lighting. All these bikes shared a single DNA: cruiser styling, compact displacement, and Harley attitude without the Harley price. This wasn't a fad. This was a calculated offensive. In Brazil, Lifan overtook Suzuki in total cruiser sales. In Vietnam, Benda became the most imported Chinese brand among young urban riders. In Egypt, Keyway models are now police fleet standards. And in Spain, entry-level buyers are choosing the V302C over used Harley Street 500s because they're tired of paying more and getting less. These machines aren't half-built knockoffs. They're real, ride-tested motorcycles engineered to fill the gap Harley left behind when it abandoned affordability. For the first time, riders in developing and developed nations alike could afford a cruiser that worked. No overpriced repairs, no overbuilt branding. And one man knew it better than anyone, because he used to sell them: the dealer who switched sides. For almost 2 decades, Tommy Brooks was a Harley-Davidson man. He ran a small dealership in southern Missouri, kept a Road King in his garage, and lived for Sunday rides with veterans and old friends. Harley wasn't just a product, it was personal, it was community. But things began to change around 2019. Tommy noticed fewer people walking through the doors. Prices were climbing, especially on basic Sportsters and Softails. Finance terms were brutal. Harley was pushing optional add-ons that inflated sticker prices by thousands. And corporate reps were laser-focused on pushing the Livewire and Pan America, despite the fact that no one in Tommy's county even wanted them. He started losing sleep. Every time he looked at his showroom, he saw overpriced chrome gathering dust. Customers came in, sat on the bikes, smiled politely, then left empty-handed. One day, Tommy stumbled across a review of the Keyway FI 302C on a European rider forum. He couldn't believe it. LED lighting, belt drive, upside-down forks, full steel build, under $2,000. He was skeptical, until he imported one himself. It ran like a dream. In 2022, Tommy walked away from Harley. He gave up the franchise license, pulled down the bar and shield signs, and reopened his dealership under a new name. Now he imports and sells Chinese cruisers, Keyway, Lifan, Zontes. Bikes, he says, actually make sense for the people I serve. Tommy's not a rebel. He's not trying to destroy Harley. He just got tired of apologizing for a brand that lost touch with reality. And what started as a business shift soon turned into something far bigger: China's two-wheeled trade war. The Keyway V302C is not just a bike, it's a signal flare in a global strategy. For the past 20 years, China has followed a precise pattern: enter established markets with lower costs, iterate rapidly, and scale with ruthless efficiency. It happened with consumer electronics. It happened with EV batteries. It happened with drones. Now it's happening with motorcycles, and cruisers are the battlefield. Behind the Keyway brand stands QJ Motor, one of the largest motorcycle companies in the world. Backed by Chinese state capital and tied to military contracts, QJ Motor produces everything from race bikes to police motorcycles to high-displacement twins under Benelli. Their facilities rival anything in Europe or Japan. Their distribution networks span more than 70 countries. To China, motorcycles aren't just products. They're exports of ideology. Freedom, rebellion, style, Values that once made Harley powerful are now being manufactured, rebranded, and sold back to the world with better tech and lower costs. This is a two-wheeled trade war, and America isn't fighting it. It's ignoring it. While Harley pours millions into rebranding electric bikes for urban elites, Chinese factories are building affordable cruisers for farmers, mechanics, and middle-class commuters. While the U.S. government stifles imports with outdated regulations, China is forging trade routes that bring motorcycles to every continent. It's not about copying Harley anymore. It's about outpacing them, technically, culturally, and economically. And for American riders, the consequences are hitting home. If it's better, why can't you ride it? Let's say you wanted one. You've seen the reviews, you've watched the ride footage, you've heard real-world riders say the Keyway FI 302C is smoother than a Street 750, better built than a Honda Rebel 300, and more honest than anything with a Harley badge under $15,000. You've got the cash. You're ready. But the answer is still no, because in the United States, you are not allowed to ride this motorcycle, not without a workaround. Not without paperwork gymnastics, not without risking DMV rejection or seizure at customs, and not because the bike is unsafe, but because the system says you can't. It's a quiet kind of tyranny, not the dramatic flag-burning kind, but the regulatory chokehold, a form of gatekeeping that tells working riders what they're allowed to enjoy and what they're not. It's not about danger. The V302C passes European safety standards. It's not about pollution. It meets Euro 5 emissions. It's about power. Who gets to decide what qualifies as a real motorcycle and who profits from it? Every restriction is wrapped in language that sounds reasonable. Consumer protection, standards compliance, brand accountability. But peel it back, and what you find is a wall built by lobbyists, funded by legacy brands, and enforced by bureaucrats who have never twisted a throttle in their lives. Your freedom of choice doesn't disappear all at once. It erodes. One denied import, one blocked VIN, one canceled certification at a time. And Harley's big fix? Something no rider asked for. Harley's EV gamble. Too little, too late? When Harley unveiled the Livewire, they didn't just introduce a product, they tried to rewrite their identity. No more steel and thunder, no more middle fingers to conformity, just silence, screens, and sustainability. It was a bold pivot, maybe even admirable, but it didn't land, because Harley misread the room. They thought their problem was performance, or emissions, or bad press. It wasn't. Their problem was value. The Livewire was priced at over $30,000, more than double the cost of most comparable electric motorcycles. It offered fast charging and aggressive torque, but lacked soul. It wasn't built for long rides or gritty commutes. It was designed for the showroom, not the saddle. And more importantly, it alienated the very riders Harley claimed to serve. Working-class Americans didn't ask for an EV revolution. They asked for something they could afford, fix, and trust. Meanwhile, the Keyway FI 302C was doing the opposite. It wasn't trying to change the world. It wasn't trying to make a statement. It was just working. For under $2,000. Harley bet their future on a narrative that didn't include their core customers. They forgot what made them iconic. Blue-collar grit, real-world reliability, and mechanical pride. It wasn't the electric part that failed, it was the disconnect. Because the road to the future doesn't require abandoning the past. It requires respecting it. The real problem isn't batteries. It's value. The motorcycle industry's silent collapse. There was a time when motorcycles meant freedom, simplicity, connection. A $3,000 used bike and an open highway were all you needed. But somewhere along the way, the industry forgot that. Now we're seeing the slow decay of something once sacred. The average price of a new motorcycle in the U.S. has crossed $12,000. Dealerships are vanishing in rural counties. OEM parts take months to arrive. Insurance premiums for young riders are skyrocketing. Worse still, the culture is disappearing. Young people aren't joining up. They're priced out before they even start. Used inventory is drying up. Training programs are closing. And the brands? They're all chasing the same digital unicorn. Apps, screens, subscriptions, and influencer campaigns no one asked for. The industry's response to decline hasn't been reinvention. It's been denial and delay. Instead of making bikes riders want, they made bikes investors want. Instead of rebuilding trust, they doubled down on marketing. Instead of listening, they lectured. And through that silence, China moved in. The Keyway FI 302C is not just an outlier. It's evidence that a better system is possible, that motorcycles can still be affordable, stylish, and mechanically sound, that riders deserve choice. But most of all, it proves something devastating. The problem was never the customer, it was the industry. But one bike is breaking that cycle, and it's not American. Still with us. That means this hit home. Subscribe now. We're not done exposing how the industry keeps riders in the dark. This bike costs $1,500, and it changed everything. $1,500. That's what it costs in parts of Europe. Not $30,000, not $12,000. One bike, V-twin engine, belt drive, steel frame, full LED, ABS. And it's built like a real motorcycle. Not a toy, not a tech gimmick, not a lifestyle accessory. It's called the Keyway V302C, and it has quietly shaken the foundation of one of America's most iconic industries. Not with noise, not with branding, but with competence. It didn't launch on a Super Bowl ad. It didn't need influencers. It didn't make promises it couldn't keep. It just showed up, affordable, reliable, and better built than the Harley-Davidson Street 750, which cost 8 times more when it was new. This isn't about being anti-American, it's about being pro-rider. And in this new era, riders are tired of being talked down to. They want motorcycles that work, that reflect their values, that don't bankrupt them to maintain or require brand loyalty to justify. The V302C is more than a bike. It's a referendum. On price, on power, on who gets to ride and who gets left behind. And if Harley wants to survive, it can't just build louder machines, it has to listen. Because this motorcycle wasn't supposed to succeed, it wasn't supposed to reach this many riders, it wasn't supposed to embarrass the biggest name in the game. This bike exposed the cracks in the system, but it's not the only hidden gem out there. If you want affordable, reliable Japanese bikes no one's talking about, go watch the next video. And if this opened your eyes, like, comment, and subscribe.